Hello guys, welcome back to our anime moments. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel, thank you. Today is explanation of upcoming episode Throne of Steel based on novel. So let's start. Unfortunately, Long Hao-chen wouldn't let him go. After the 7 sword strikes in succession, he not only forced the enemy to draw back without pause, and caused him to wound himself in the process, but also caused his own vigor to grow to its peak. Now, one could clearly see that Long Hao-chen's whole body was glinting with a white glint. The ability Holy Sword was originally could only be used on one's weapon, but at this moment, Long Hao-chen made use of his comprehension toward sword intent and control over the light element as a god's chosen one, to turn his whole body into the Holy Sword state. At the same time, his right hand and right arm were glinting in incomparable transparence, precisely from brilliant body. In simple words, those 7 strikes from before were simply a way for him to charge energy. After this sequence, blasting the fiend commander away, wounded, Long Hao-chen came to a slight pause, not to recover his strength, but quite the opposite, because his bearing was close to its peak, and that now was the time to get the opponent locked. His both hands grasping the handle of the aria of the Goddess of Light, at the time Long Hao-chen's divine sword was once again raised up, the fiend commander suddenly felt as if the sun was about to pass through his body. A sharp sword intent was locked onto him completely, to the extent that he didn't even dare consider escaping anymore. Even a strong existence such as the fiend commander of the 8th step felt his mind going somewhat blank at this time, because he was unable to make head or tail of what to do in this situation, or how to reply to the strike before his eyes. However, he had, like every living being, a survival instinct. When sensing that his life was insignificant in front of the enemy, this fiend commander of the 8th step came to a prompt decision. Abruptly biting his tongue, and forcefully cutting off its upper part, he spouted a mouthful of blood, lit up in a scarlet color. This was the demonic collapse technique only possessed by high-ranked demons, that Long Hao-chen had encountered once against the snake devil demon god Andromalius. Merely, this demonic collapse technique felt different from the version used by the snake devil demon god Andromalius. Andromalius used the demon god class version, conferring a great boost, while making the side effects slightly smaller. But after this fiend commander would be done using the demonic collapse technique, even if he didn't die from that, his cultivation would at least be forcibly dropped to the 6th step. Of course, compared to death, the cost of a loss of cultivation wasn't much. The light fluctuations from this side attracted the attention of the demon army at the other side, resulting in the Fiend King giving the order to head there, at his best prudent state. That was because he didn't know how many enemies there were. Ever since seeing the previous crowd spell of the 8th step, he came to believe the human force that came to intercept them was considerably strong. As the commander of this elite army, he didn't dare become careless. At this time, dark purple glints of light kept bubbling up from the 500 hell demons. They were chanting at rapid speed, and in each of their hands were purplish red crystals, acting as their staves. The dark purple glints took the shape of an immense barrier, covering the whole demon army inside. This was their best defensive formation. With 500 hell demons acting jointly in defense, even a powerhouse of the 9th step wouldn't possibly be able to break it without an especially powerful weapon. Now that the Fiend King sensed powerful fluctuations of light essence coming from the other side of the mountain, he couldn't care about the life or death of his underlings on that side, compared to the defense of the whole army. A bloody red light shone on his chest, before scarlet bloody fox spread out from his body, covering the whole army. This was element control, was close to the level of the domain of a 9th step user. This was strength, absolute strength. His sword intent combined with the aria of the Goddess of Light caused Long Hao-chen's imposing manner to transcend its peak. Without sufficiently good equipment, even a powerhouse of the 8th step would hardly be able to resist him. And the most fearful thing was Long Hao-chen's battle experience. Before, he made himself seem weak and escaped so brazenly to attract the enemy into pursuing him. And from his counter-offensive to the death of the Fiend Commander, only a few breaths of time had passed. The whole battle was within his grasp, and he didn't give the Fiend Commander the slightest opportunity to display his real strength. Long Hao-chen was certainly very young, but his experience was a lot richer than other people of his age. Just how many times did he risk his life in battle? How many desperate crises did he overcome up to now? Each of these experiences became a part of his strength, transforming him. In merely a few years, he could already be compared with many of his precursors in terms of attitude and battle experience, and this was without mentioning all the powerful skills he acquired from the holy guards in the Tower of Eternity. Flapping his wings with difficulty, he took advantage of the instant before the death of the Fiend Commander to absorb him in the eternal melody. Then Long Hao-chen changed his stance, facing the mountain peaks. From what he remembered, the 9th Holy Guard flew over from there just before. But why was it that no fluctuation of spiritual energy could be sensed from there up to now? Having borrowed strength from the souls of the other 3 holy guards, the 9th holy guard's magic could be said to have reached the peak of the 8th step already. While watching attentively the mountain in front of his eyes, Long Houchen rapidly returned to the ground, taking a new great recovery pill, recovering his spiritual energy rapidly. In the meantime, he changed into a black gown, taking advantage of the night to conceal his figure. At least up to now, the plan had been going smoothly. Now, all depended on how the 9th holy guard would fare. 9th, you have to be faster, otherwise we won't be able to intimidate these demons. That's just the way it is. Demons aren't fools either, and after this short moment of caution, they would soon notice no further movement from the other side, as well as the disappearance of the fluctuation of light elemental spiritual energy. It would the same as if they were back in the original situation. The toppling of a mountain peak, how frightful was that? The violent explosion coming along with a massive weight caused landslides in the 7 surrounding mountains. Who knows how many stones of over 3 meters diameters fell as a result, as if this was the reaction of the god of the mountain, frantically smashing these debris over the demon army. At the time of the mountain's crumble, a golden glint was soaring in the sky, floating in midair helped by the 4 wings on his back. On the toppled mountain underneath, a yellow flow of light surged, flashing back to its chest, and its aura disappeared instantly. This was a genuine landslide. This was the first time for Long Houchen to see such an awe-inspiring scene. Although his trust in the capabilities of the 9th Holy Guard was high, he wasn't quite expecting that he would be given such a pleasant surprise. He actually made a whole mountain fall? To the demons, this was no less than a fatal blow. While evading the huge rocks in the air, Long Houchen's face was brimming with an uncontrollable smile. No matter how steady he is as a person, not showing excitement in such a time was inconceivable. At least 2/3 of the demonic bears and hell demons were crushed under the rocks, and even those who could escape this fate by a fluke would simply be subject to the most terrible and direct impact from the seismic waves. The loud explosion even propelled the distant Long Houchen away, to say nothing about those bearing the impact at close range. The demon elites from this army ought to be all crippled, ha ha, Long Houchen laughed heartily, before suddenly coming to a stop. With a flash of golden light, his figure then disappeared in the sky, heading for the Tower of Eternity. Almost at the same instant as he disappeared, a dark golden glint flashed through. The next instant the loathing and enraged Fiend King appeared. A human? Could this human have come alone? No, this can't be. The damage that occurred just now was catastrophic in the eyes of this Fiend King. His troops were simply sent to death before the main assault even started. The damage caused by that great mountain to his army was simply indescribable. Of such a massive mountain peak, although half was sent straight in the ravine, the remaining amount actually propelled to its sides. If it was him alone, perhaps he could drill a cave in the mountain using his domineering spiritual energy, but only he was at the 9th step. That wasn't the case for his subordinates. Ever since this army was set up, it was under his control. All the powerhouses forming it were selected very carefully, and went through a strict training. The only one in control of them was the demon god emperor, but at the time he integrated it, he wasn't a mere fiend king anymore, instead becoming the 2nd Legion Corps chief subordinated to the demon god emperor. But these absolute elites commanded by him were inflicted fatal losses without even spotting the slightest human force. This was beyond a mere disgrace. This was an incomparable failure. The guilt from such a loss was simply unbearable. Who was that enemy in the end? How did he disappear without a trace? What kind of ability could that be? His fluctuations of spiritual energy were visibly weak. Could he have made use of a forbidden spell scroll? But he's a light element user. To cause the collapse of such a large mountain, at least a magic scroll of the earth element at the 9th step would be needed. At the time Long Houchen disappeared, he clearly had a burning hot sensation over his chest. This signified the absorption of powerful souls into the Tower of Eternity through the eternal melody. And they were naturally from the army of demons. After appearing without any trace in the 1st floor of the Tower of Eternity, he couldn't refrain from bursting out in loud laughter. No matter how strong you Fiend King are and how valiant your elite army is, let's see how you will keep launching your attack on humans. 9th Holy Guard, just how did you do that? It's simply mad, exceeding my imagination. Long Houchen unconsciously pat the golden skull on his chest, remembering the odd expression on the face of the 9th Holy Guard at the time of their separation. His soul's fluctuations seemed to carry some cruelty, malevolence and excitement. Very clearly, the 9th Holy Guard had already decided on this plan at that time. To have been able to cause the fall of a whole mountain, even by borrowing the forces of the other 3 holy guards, it remained a fearful feat, definitely able to match a forbidden spell level magic. Right, a forbidden spell. If I am asked by the side of the Alliance, I can perhaps only explain that by the use of an Earth Elemental forbidden scroll. In truth, even if this spell used by the 9th Holy Guard was powerful, it had yet to reach the strength of a forbidden spell, or could only be said to reach the edge of this boundary. If this was a real forbidden Earth Element spell, the result would definitely not be the fall of a single mountain. A real forbidden spell would cause the whole mountain to shatter instantly, turning into a rain of meteors smashing the enemies. But don't believe that all powerhouses of the 9th step are able to use forbidden spells. Even some exceeding 200,000 units of spiritual energy would not necessarily have the ability to execute a forbidden spell. Making full use of a forbidden spell required a great elemental affinity, and the incantation has to be completed from beginning to end for success. Forbidden spells contain a great deal of uncertainty, and a forbidden spell won't necessarily be extremely powerful. Only when used in a suited situation could it show devastating results. Demons are after all outsiders that don't come from this world. So the demon forbidden spells were almost all created over the past 6,000 years. Their number aren't few, and all had very harsh prerequisites for activation. Only a demon god in the top 10 could be certain of being able to put a forbidden spell to use. And this would be hard to guarantee for the lower-ranked demon gods. In fact, this depends on the level of understanding and other aspects of the user himself. Although the 9th Holy Guard caused the fall of a mountain, the spell he used consumed a lot less spiritual energy than a forbidden spell would normally cost. Otherwise, how could he have completed it? But even so, this spell was sufficient to prove the gap between the other 3 Holy Guards and him. Until the 9th Holy Guard completed this spell, Longhauchen had yet to understand the reason for the huge respect the other 3 held for him. What the 9th Holy Guard just put in use was a combination spell, associating several spells of his element. The whole process was actually not so complex, but as one might well imagine, accomplishing that would not only require massive spiritual energy, and to rely on a mountain as base. This needed extremely meticulous calculation, control, rhythm, and to go through all sort of complex process to find the core material points. If this mountain peak was just a bit larger, the 9th Holy Guard would be unable to complete this spell. This proved that luck stood at the human side. Relying on his powerful abilities of the earth element, the 9th Holy Guard directly drilled into the mountain's body, before destroying it from the inside. Of course, the point wasn't to destroy the whole mountain, but to cause it to lean toward the side of the demon army before wrecking it. And during this time, the demons were still distracted and confused by the spell Yating activated. The first spell used by the 9th Holy Guard was called Fossil Softening. It uses a large amount of rock, transferring large amount of earth essence inside, to soften it, creating gaps inside of the mountain body, before enlarging these gaps. When the gaps reached a certain level, he put all his power into the gravity technique, executing the forbidden spell Mountain Flooding on this mountain range. To say nothing of the terrible might of this spell, the mere creativity to create such a spell surpassed the level reached by the mags of this age by a vast distance. Of course, the current 9th Holy Guard had to pay an enormous cost in the process, requiring him to go into a long period of deep slumber with his other Holy Guard mates. Nevertheless, they were not very needed by Longhauchen for the time being. After returning to the Temple Alliance, he wouldn't lightly summon them to make use of their help. After all, they have in the end their own status as creatures born from necromancy, which would easily give birth to some unnecessary misunderstandings. Still, what a shame. After this short time of excitement, Longhauchen couldn't help but beat his own left palm with his right fist. Indeed, if the Temple Alliance had a troop of elites lying in wait nearby, after the sudden attack from mountain flooding, perhaps all demon would reach the end of their fate in this demon-resisting mountain rage. His comrades still being in the mountain range, Longhauchen didn't dare tarry over these matters any longer. Sitting on a proper cross-legged posture, he rapidly recovered his spiritual energy. With his level of cultivation, his 3 spiritual cavities and his qualitative advantage as a God's chosen one, the whole process of recovery took him only a quarter of an hour. Having just absorbed so many valiant souls, the Tower of Eternity wasn't stingy at all to its new master. The concentration of light essence here was at least 10 times stronger than outside. With a glint of golden light, Longhauchen returned to the demon-resisting mountain range. He restricted the light emanating from him as much as possible, as the instant he appeared, his figure made its way into the needle leaves forest underneath. This was a place he had arranged before departing. The chaos at this place was not abated. Even from there, Longhauchen was able to hear the distant yells. Mountain floodings might thoroughly stop the demons there. They were trying their utmost to help the dying and heal the injured. After all, the terrifying force of such a calamity was close to a natural disaster where the wounded were far more numerous than the dead. Visibly, they would be stuck here for close to a quarter of an hour. Long Houchen didn't attempt to step closer. He understood clearly that this time, the demons were not only weakened, but also very sensitive. The Fiend King of the Ninth Step could only be eager to encounter him. Letting his senses raise to their peak, Long Houchen silently focused his attention on the movements of the other side, letting a smile gradually draw on his face. The damage inflicted to the demons turned out to be even more severe than his expectations. Although he didn't get to examine the details closely, he was able to sense that a large amount of demons were lying on the ground. The best news were that at the time the mountain fall occurred, the ones who suffered the largest loss were the demonic bears and hell demons, the most powerful part of their fighting strength. In particular, the 500 hell demons could be considered to be 500 magic leaders or great magic leaders in the battlefield. But now, not a lot of them were left alive. Even those who weren't smashed to death were mostly shaken to death. Not stopping over for any longer, Long Houchen decided to do the best he could. Although the enemies were seriously wounded, they weren't something their demon hunt squad could contend against. The goal having been reached, he naturally chose to regroup with the others. The Fiend King Safin was at this time coughing blood. He took the initiative to dig into the mountain to try to save as many of his subordinates as possible. Relying on his strength of the ninth step, all his interventions would reduce the rocks in an area of a dozen square meters and stop the waves from spreading in this area. But right in front of his eyes, none of the crushed corpses were recognizable, simply reduced to mincemeat. The relatively lightly wounded gathered with a group of berserk demons that managed to make it alive. The soldiers in good condition, they had only amounted a third of the whole army. And at least 1,000 of powerful demon soldiers were deceased in the previous event. No matter what, this loss was unbearable in Safin's eyes. His rage was uncontrollable. Safin bellowed loudly at the sky, madly crushing the rock in his way with his fist, and covering the surrounding hills with holes. Don't ever let me know who you are. The Fiend King Safin roared madly at the sky, remembering about the golden figure that disappeared just before. For wings, he had 4 wings. Order everyone to bring the wounded and retreat. The surprise attack having failed, ending with disastrous losses, the demon soldiers under his command were mostly injured. He had no other choice left than withdrawing. The Temple Alliance was very possibly already aware of the situation here, so if they stayed any longer, they would perhaps be unable to leave afterwards. Filled with overflowing rancor, the Fiend King, chief of the 2nd Legion Corps Safin rapidly evacuated his subordinates. Boss, what magic spell did you just use? When Long Houchen and his comrades joined force on the hilltop, he was almost instantly surrounded by the others. Although this place was quite distant from the land of destruction, the terrible explosion spread towards the whole demon-resisting mountain range. The terrible noise was naturally heard by them as well. Long Houchen told them the whole story, astonishing the whole audience. The 9th Holy Guard actually had such power? Could he have unleashed a forbidden spell? Lin Xin sounded full of admiration. To a mage like him, the feat of having stopped such a powerful army was really shocking. Long Houchen shook his head. I am certain that this wasn't a forbidden spell. It should be the good use of his magic abilities in perfect association with the terrain. Still, you have to learn from the Holy Guards. Be it in terms of experience or strength, they are far above us. We have still a lot more to learn from them. Wang Yuanyuan asked, Captain, since they were beaten to such extent, do you think they would continue this assault? Long Houchen shook his head. On my way back, I sensed that they were retreating. After all, their objective has been exposed and they suffered such damage. As long as their commander is not retarded, he would certainly not insist on this attack. The demon-resisting mountain range is lacking of nothing besides mountain. If the same thing happens to them again, wouldn't they go mad? But this is good too. If the demon armies think about sneaking into the demon-resisting mountain range again, I'm afraid that they would have some lingering fears from this experience. Who could expect the sudden collapse of a mountain? Everyone smiled in agreement. Such results were simply grandiose. At the time the demon armies finally left from the demon-resisting mountain range, the day was already up. Fate seemed to have taken the side of humans. As far as the demons were concerned, they suffered was a crushing defeat. After following with their eyes the departure of the army, Long Houchen's group resumed their journey, proceeding towards the land of the catastrophe. With the death of so many demon powerhouses, it would be good if they managed to get some demon crystals. Cutting their way into the mountain wasn't something only the demons were capable of. Hearing a story was something, but encountering it was another. At the time Wang Yuan, Lin Xin, Sima Xian, Cai, and Chen Yinga arrived, they couldn't help but be totally shocked. Deep inside, they came to imagine what kind of scene they would be subject to if they were present at the instant the mountain crumbled. "Boss, what should we do?" Sima Xian asked Long Haochen. Long Haochen replied, "We shall dig out. Let's see how many magical crystals we can find. No matter what kind of demon they belong to, these demon crystals are all treasures. It will be given for Lin Xin's pill concoction." "Good, good." Lin Xin immediately reacted with a smile. This demon operation had pleased this god of fortune of their team enormously. Bringing back all these good things, they were certain to fetch good price in the market or be of some utility to them. Chen Yinga had collected over 300 crystals which were of the 6th step at least, enough for McDull to be extravagant. The corpses of many demons and magical beasts, especially forest boars and the devil snake god Andromalius, were collected by Lin Xin. He had the deep impression that after all this, his skills in alchemy were bound to improve tremendously. Becoming a great master was only a matter of time to him. After all, where could there be another alchemist with as many materials available to be used as flagrantly as him? Long Haochen naturally had his own objectives in the act of clearing the battlefield here. With such a commotion, Temple Alliance couldn't possibly remain ignorant. And furthermore, Han Yu's news ought to have already arrived. Surely before long, some army troops would come to their rescue. After meeting with these troops, telling them the real story would be more effective than coming up with an unbelievable report. Besides, not collecting this many corpses and crystals of higher-ranked demons would be a waste. These were precious spoils of war. The glory of opening the way through the mountain was naturally left to Sima Xian and Wang Yuan. Even without additional ability, the terrifying weight and crushing power of the energetic ball of light made it the most ideal candidate for this task. The group figured the path the Fiend King Safan took, and followed it by blowing their way up. One magical crystal after another reached Lin Xin's hands, but this guy seemed dissatisfied. That's because the corpses of these demons were too mangled and hard to make use of. After all, extremely severely damaged corpses would be hard to conserve, even with a spiritual transporting tool. The work of cutting their way into the mountain didn't take too long before the reinforcements arrived. Under Han Yu's lead, the group of elites arrived with shocked expressions at the sight of Long Haochen's group. These elite troops were far less than their expectations, only totaling about 300. But when their distance was of 200 meters, Long Haochen felt their presence, through sensing Han Yu's aura. Wearing veils, assassins clad in grey color appeared to view, very rapidly encircling Long Haochen's group. These assassins didn't let out any aura, and couldn't be sensed at all. Long Haochen's group slowly left the cave, moving slowly. This wasn't deliberate, as they had no choice but to walk slowly, because although these assassins seemed composed, it felt that as long as they made any sudden movements, these 300 assassins would swallow them like a deadly torrent. "Boss." Seeing Long Haochen's group come out from the cave, Han Yu immediately called out to him in excitement. He also didn't understand what happened. How could a mountain fall on its side? And why would Long Haochen's group be present here? And where were the enemies gone? His mind was full of questions. Han Yu looked quite tired. Having traveled day and night, he was totally exhausted. From the sound of Han Yu's voice calling out for his boss, the hostility emanating from the grey-clad assassins quietly disappeared. However, they remained unmoving and cold like air. Only a rather slight-built one advanced at Han Yu's side. Long Haochen took large strides forward, telling him the words, "It was hard on you." Han Yu replied in a pressed tone, "It's nothing." "Boss, where are the enemies? These demons?" He was filled with anxiety. He had brought so many powerhouses from the Assassin Temple in a hurry, but upon reaching the destination, no demons were at sight. Wouldn't that be taken as a lie to the military? Their team definitely wasn't capable of taking such blame. Long Haochen replied, "The demons have all retreated. Take a look." Giving this reply, he pointed at the mountain behind them. Han Yu was startled. The assassin on his side finally changed looks from his impossible expression, his aged voice sounding out, "Youngsters, don't tell me that you are the ones who caused the collapse of such a mountain, suppressing all these demon elite troops. From the images you brought back, this could very possibly be one of the top demon legion, known as the Demon God Emperor's Second Legion." Long Haochen shook his head, "Not the whole, only a part of it. A large amount of demonic bears and hell demons, with a few grand fiends and berserk demons are crushed under this. I estimate the demons to have lost close to a third of their troops before they chose to withdraw. Demon corpses are still stuck underneath. We have already cut a way in, you can just have a look." With his sharp senses, he sensed that the assassin before him was undoubtedly an assassin emperor at the 8th step. Following them, the work of excavation was undertaken by the assassins. To Long Houchen's shock, among these 300 that had appeared, the assassins of the 8th step numbered 20, and the remaining were all assassin kings at the 7th step. These were the top elites of the assassin temple, forming the Hidden Hall. The Hidden Chivalrous Hall was formed of a total of 36 assassins bearing the title of Hidden Knights, the cream of the cream that was chosen for this task. Very rapidly, various informations were reported to them, proving Long Houchen's words. That Hidden Knight titled assassin that spoke to Long Houchen before had now a totally different expression on his face. Young Demon Hunt Squad Captain, you are heroes for the Alliance, and for our Exorcist Mountain Pass. On behalf of the million military and civilians forming it, I thank you. Long Houchen saluted back to him with respect. Respected Hidden Knight, I should be the one thanking you. The senior revealed a smile. I am the 4th Hidden Knight, commander of this operation. Thinking of having to undergo a fierce battle, I didn't expect to have only come for recovery of materials. I will report your contribution as things are. However, we have to return as fast as possible to the Exorcist Mountain Pass. Oh, right, I haven't asked for your name yet. Long Houchen replied. I am the captain of the 64th Commander Grade Demon Hunt Squad. Long Houchen, Commander Grade? The 4th Hidden Knight appeared in shock. How could a Commander Grade Demon Hunt Squad be in possession of a forbidden spell-ranked scroll? Even for Demon Hunt Squads, these things out to cost at least 1 million contribution points. And could a Demon Hunter even trigger a forbidden scroll of the Earth element? However, following his shock, he suddenly realized how Long Houchen had just named himself. So, you are Long Houchen? This time, the tone of this Hidden Knight changed totally. Long Houchen nodded in puzzlement. Yes, that's me. Have you heard of me before? From his point of view, the fact this senior had heard of his name should be related to his relationship with CAIO. But even so, there was no need to act so shocked. Of course I heard of you before. You are extremely well known. So it was actually you. Then it's no wonder at all. Hearing his words, Long Houchen was at a loss. Without waiting for his reply, the 4th Hidden Knight seemed to have suddenly become extremely impatient. This won't do. Follow me as fast as possible, all of you. We will return to the Exorcist Mountain Path by flight. Senior, what were you just? Long Houchen was greatly puzzled by this senior, and the same went for everyone else. This 4th Hidden Knight's excitement sounded somewhat abnormal. The 4th Hidden Knight replied, follow me first, I will explain to you on the way. At long last you guys are back. Afterwards, he instructed the other assassins to return to the Alliance and took the initiative to bring Long Houchen's group of 7 back, spreading out their spiritual wings and directly heading towards the Exorcist Mountain Path. Senior, can you tell me now what happened? In midair, Long Houchen asked him once again. Seeing the 4 wings spreading out on Long Houchen's back, the 4th Hidden Knight had another shock. This youngster is indeed quite an abnormal one. Well, the demon armies are besieging us. Since you are finally back, you ought to know. The 4th Hidden Knight replied. Long Houchen nodded. We saw that the demon approach had become especially tumultuous this time. The military force they have gathered is considerable. That's why we had to take the long route to head there, climbing over the mountain. That's how we ran across that 2nd Demon Emperor Legion. The 4th Hidden Knight replied, this situation isn't only taking place in the Exorcist Mountain Pass, but at all the strategic points of the Alliance. The demons dispatched the overwhelming majority of their troops, launching a holy war against the Alliance. What? Long Houchen had already guessed that this ought to be an intense conflict, but didn't think things would be so serious. A holy war, meaning a war that wouldn't stop until total annihilation. This was a full-strength clash between the two races. But the demons hadn't launched such a war for over 2,000 years. Could they have gone mad? The 4th Heroic Knight glanced at Long Houchen. Do you know why a holy war is happening now? Long Houchen shook his head. How could he guess such a thing? The 4th Hidden Knight replied, the demons came very suddenly, about half a month ago, assembling enormous armies in each major human stronghold. They originally only surrounded them without attacking. The Alliance responded rapidly, transferring their inner troops, making a forced repatriation of the whole available forces, and warning the whole population to prepare for changes. The demon god Emperor Fengxiu personally brought out the threat of a holy war, with a single demand. If we could respond to it, they would immediately withdraw, otherwise, they would launch this army of millions of troops to start a holy war in the edges of the whole Alliance. What was his demand? For the demons to burst out so brazenly, Long Houchen was not only puzzled but moreover full of shock and curiosity. The fourth hidden knight took a deep breath, before giving a simple reply. It was you, what? Me? Are you sure? When Long Houchen heard that reply, he felt totally confused, and full of disbelief. How could this be? Even if he escaped from Arbao's hands, and caused severe troubles to the demons, every demon hunt squad was the same. How could the demon god emperor make such a fuss over such a minor issue, triggering this holy war just because of me? The fourth hidden knight smiled bitterly. No one understood the motives of the demon god emperor. But their motives are just as you heard. They wanted the alliance to hand over you, or otherwise, this holy war would be launched. This was his only request. Not only Long Houchen had a grotesque look on his face. How couldn't it be the same for his comrades? A holy war related to the extinction of one of the demon or the human race was actually triggered just because of Long Houchen. This simple reason was very hard to comprehend. The nearby Sima Xian couldn't help but react. Could this be because we destroyed a demon god pillar? But the news couldn't have spread so far. Even if he knew, he shouldn't have reacted so rapidly to that. You. Just what did you say? You destroyed a demon god pillar? The fourth hidden knight felt difficulty to even breath. His whole worldview changed totally. Could such a commander-grade demon hunt squad destroy a demon god pillar? How could this be? Just how? Long Houchen was also totally puzzled, immediately denying Sima Xian's hypothesis. It can't be because of that. Even if this war was sudden, the demons needed the time of 1 month to prepare for it. At that time, we were still in Jack City. Is the demon god emperor crazy? At the current time, he was in a confused state of mind, failing to understanding the motives of the demon god emperor. Most of all, he couldn't comprehend how he could have so mysteriously become the target of the demon god emperor. Kia suddenly spoke. Did the alliance accept the condition of the demon god emperor? She, who had become so cautious after losing her memories, suddenly asked the most important issue. The others had instantly become vigilant on that issue. Right? Did the alliance accept the condition of the demon god emperor? After all, even with an even greater talent, Long Houchen was just a single person. Such a holy war would surely put many people in a disastrous condition. Hence it wouldn't be impossible for the alliance to abandon Long Houchen. It could be that this confrontation only took place because Long Houchen hadn't returned yet. If things are really that way, then now. Everyone glanced at each other filled with serious feelings of worry. The eyes of every members gathered all onto the fourth heroic assassin knight, waiting for his reply. This video will end here. Thank you for watching.